Hi there. This is Miss Duncan. I'm sure you all know. It's definitely not Miss Lemus. Um, I am going to be joining with your class just for this week, and I'm going to be talking to you about some of the methods that you can use in order to find research studies and how to filter those resources out and how to find exactly what you're looking for. I'm really excited to be a part of your class. As some of you all know, I do love research. I like being able to find research studies that will, either support or not support some of the claims that I hear. And I think that it's a really, really important aspect of our clinical practice. I'm sure you've already heard, but here in today's dental hygiene, we practice evidence-based dental hygiene, evidence-based practice. And what that means is that every single decision that we make needs to be backed by scientific research. And so if you're able to, find research that's not hidden behind a paywall, then, you'll be that much better equipped to make those decisions and to give those recommendations to your patients. I think that it's very important. Um, I think, not only does it help us with our evidence-based practice, but it also elevates our status as a whole, as a profession, because we're not just blindly doing what our dentists tell us to do. We are also providers and we are thinking for ourselves. We're finding research. We are supporting our own knowledge. And it's just going to overall make us all better practitioners. I'm really excited to be working with you guys this week. Okay, so the learning objectives for this video will be for students, and I put students in quotation marks because I am hoping you will not always be a student. I'm hoping one day you will be a clinician and you will go out into the world and to be able to do these things as well. So I want you to be able to recognize databases, the ones that we can use for our scholarly research, right? We're not just Googling things. And I want you to be able to figure out which databases would be better for the different types of research you're going to be doing. I want you to be able to explain how to use key terms in an expanded function. Key terms or search terms or keywords are all the same thing. You need to be able to apply Boolean logic to search terms. And I know that sounds like a made up word, but it's not. Boolean logic is a real thing. You're going to need to be able to organize search results using filters. You're going to filter out all of that stuff you don't want to read so that you can get to the good stuff. And then you need to check scholarly articles in your references list for usefulness. So we're going to look at the results list and the references list of the articles we find in order to find more articles just like them. And then by the end of this video, you're going to be able to create a full references list. So when you get into next term and you are in seminar and you have to actually do some research in order to find the answer to a question that you're going to have, you're going to be able to find those. And no one by the end of this video is going to say, I couldn't find it. I, don't, I couldn't find any articles. No, you're going to be able to find them. We're ready. Okay, so why can't I just use Google for this? The main reason is that Google searches everything on the internet. Okay, so some of the things that you're going to get back from Google are ridiculous. They are blogs or opinions or somebody out there wrote an article. They did no research. They have no science backing them. They just have an opinion and they posted it and everyone can read anything. At one point, my daughter told me that diabetes causes, or no, sorry, she said smoking causes blindness. And I said, what? Smoking does not cause blindness. And she said, yeah, I read it on the internet. It must be true. Well, no, it's not. It's not true. Okay. So Google searches everything on the internet. Google has an algorithm that they use that the people who have more foot traffic on a website, that website will show up higher up in your search. Or they have this fancy thing where you can pay Google for an ad and it will pop whatever it is that they want you to read all the way at the top. So if you're interested in reading about toothpaste, you're probably not reading very evidence-based research about toothpaste if you just Google it. You're probably reading what somebody paid hundreds of dollars, or I don't even know, thousands of dollars probably, to Google in order for them to be able to put their information right at the front. So uh, there are ways to use Google in order to find more about your topic, to understand more about your topic. Maybe if you have no idea what you're looking at, but you will not use Google in order to find scholarly articles, okay? Most of the time as well with Google, you're finding secondary research, not primary research. I'm a big fan of primary research because I love the studies. I love to read how that study was conducted, and then I love to pick it apart and give them all kinds of terrible feedback. But when we're looking for scholarly research, we're looking for a lot of times we're looking for an analysis of that scholarly primary research. And so secondary research is okay as long as it's scholarly. However, Google's not going to give you scholarly research. They're going to give you someone who read a study and then they wrote a paper about it, and and that's not what I want. Okay, so here are at least the first two types of research. We have primary research, which is written by the researchers who performed the study. So whoever it was, they are the one who collected the data. They're the ones who either they put it into a statistical database or a statistical analysis, or they paid someone else to put it into a statistical analysis. But anyway, they are the people who actually performed the study. They were ground zero, and they followed a scientific method to determine those results. We all know the scientific method includes, gathering information, analyzing that information, and then publishing those results. And so that scientific method is crucial to this type of research that we're looking for. The primary research includes randomized controlled trials, cohort studies, interviews, surveys, etc., etc., etc. There's so many different ways to perform research studies. These types of articles always have a sample size. If it's in human research, most of the time, even if it's not human research, it has a sample size. So if you see anywhere in that article it says n equals something, it is potentially a primary research. The one exception to this, the one type of research that falls into both of these, primary and secondary, is going to be a meta-analysis. The meta-analysis is pretty much the golden standard. It is the article of all articles, and it is where they took research studies and they analyzed those research studies, and they basically performed a study on all of those studies. They compare and they contrast. They use statistical data and they determine the overall concept or the overall answer to each of those studies. They put them all together and they give you what each of them all mean. And so a meta-analysis really falls into both primary and secondary because they don't actually perform the studies, the individual studies, but they're kind of performing a study. Anyway, secondary research is written by people who read the primary research and then they interpret it for you. And I love secondary research because it really saves me time, and it really saves me having to read every single article out there for every study out there. But the only problem I really ever have with secondary research is that it is filtered through other people, and I don't always trust other people to interpret the things that I think I should interpret. So I want you to be really careful when you look at um, systematic reviews, even sometimes meta-analyses. They could potentially fall into this category if the process that they used in order to research articles wasn't fully comprehensive. So you're probably going to find that there are articles out there, or maybe one day you decide you're going to write some literature reviews or some systematic reviews, and there's a process to go about this that makes it to where you find every article on your topic. And if you leave out articles, then you've only gotten so much of the information. You don't have all of the information, and I don't think you're qualified to write it. But anyway, typically in this one, the author writes about something they know, and when we write about things that we know, we sometimes have bias, right? If I think that activated charcoal is too abrasive, and I'm going to focus or I'm going to hone in on how abrasive activated charcoal is. And I'm probably going to ignore any of the other potential benefits because I have a feeling about it already. I already have a base knowledge, and I'm going to look for things that support my view. And so I want you to be careful when it comes to reading secondary research. If it was done correctly, a systematic review or a meta-analysis that is peer-reviewed and it's been published in a legitimate way, then it's wonderful. But be careful when you're reading people's opinions or you're reading other people's synthesis of research because it's not always perfect. Another thing I want to say is that when you read a systematic review or a meta-analysis, you need to be able to read the whole thing, okay? Abstracts only answer one question for you. And it's never the question of your research study. It's never the question you're hypothesizing about. The only question that an abstract can answer for you is whether it's worth your time to read that whole article or it's not. Okay? That's the only thing it can answer. So you read the abstract and you say, do I need to read this full article, or does this article have nothing to do with what I need and I need to check it? If it's worth your time, it's actually about whatever your topic is, you must read the full article. I know it's going to sound like gibberish, especially the methods section as far as how the research was conducted, but you must read it. There are so many factors that go into a research study that don't get included in the abstract, that if you just cite off of an abstract, you will be misrepresenting the study. Let me make this very clear for you. Misrepresenting a study, a research study that you didn't even read, is plagiarism. Okay? If you don't understand the concept, you don't understand the intent behind the words that are being used, and you use them incorrectly, that is plagiarism because you don't know what you're citing. You don't understand what you're citing. And so I want to make it very clear that reading abstracts is not doing research. Reading a full research study, that is collecting data, that is doing research, okay? Okay, so I know what you're thinking at this point, but how do I find full articles, right? Because everywhere I go, I find an abstract that is perfect. It has everything I've ever wanted in an abstract, and I desperately want to read the full article. I know you're all desperate to read the full articles. What happens here is that the people who performed the research spent years sometimes performing that research, okay? And they're adults and they have student loans just like we do. So they they want to get paid, and it seems like it's unfortunate because I really feel like education should be open to everybody, but it's just not. Okay, so the people who perform the research, they want to get paid, so they sell or they publish their work in a database, and the database will then put that article behind a paywall. I'll say that a lot, the word paywall. It just means that when you click on it, you have to pay before you can access it, right? Um, there are a lot of ways that we can get around those paywalls and not have to pay for our research. I would like to say that in some cases, it is worth paying for an article, okay? If if you desperately need it and you need the answer to those questions, or I firmly believe that just like if you love art and you want to support artists, you love knowledge, you love dental hygiene, and you want to support the people who are willing to do the research in dental hygiene. Okay, dental hygiene research will elevate our profession as a whole, and I want you to be okay with occasionally supporting people who are willing to further our profession. But anyway, for now, we're going to talk about something called open access. Open access is the words that you need to use in order to find articles that are free, ones that you can access without having to pay for them. I know you all know what free means. Anyway, the databases that I think are really important, that are really great to go to, are going to be PubMed, which includes PubMed Central. And what happens here is that PubMed really controls a lot of the studies that are published and that are run by the National Institute of Health. And anything that the National Institute of Health does research on, because it's run by tax dollars, there is a law that mandates that those study findings have to be free for anyone, not just the US, but anyone to be able to read those research studies. And so PubMed is really kind of like the hub for finding that sort of thing, but they're not the only place. There's also Gale. Gale is the one that Concord really kind of backs. It's not the best database. I really don't love it. If you can find an article and you're like, this is a great one, and then you see that it's published by Gale, or you can access it through Gale's database, then go for it. But I wouldn't go to Gale's website and then try to use filters unless I didn't have any other options. Google Scholar is also a wonderful database to go to for scholarly research. It is not Google. You have to type in, I think it's like scholar.google.com or something like that. And so you do have to go to Google Scholar and then search for your stuff there. There are ways to filter your research, or filter your stuff in order to get the free stuff. So PubMed does have articles that are not free for you. If you see anything published in PubMed Central, that PMC, they are going to be free because those are just for those NIH studies. And then Google Scholar, you can filter those as well. I have these others on here, the Directory of Open Access Journal. Um, I'm guessing they say that DOAJ. Anyway, it's multidisciplinary, so it's not necessarily something you're going to take your dental hygiene research to. You're not going to be looking for those kinds of things. But if you're just interested in maybe sports science or any other type of research, it might be a good place for you to go check out. Then Educational Resources Information Center, or ERIC. This is one of the ones you find in that appendix in your book. This one is for educational sciences, so typically teachers go to this one. If you're struggling right now to teach your kids online, this might be a good place to go to see how to do it. And then Social Science Research Network has social sciences. I know that technically our stuff isn't social science. It is a lot more like physical science, but social science is an aspect of our career. And so if you're ever curious about maybe some of the ways in order to get into people's heads, things like that, how feelings work, then go there. The Public Library of Science, the PLOS, is very, very new. I think it's just opened a couple of years ago, and it's, I think, in my opinion, I think it's going to be the next best thing. I think it's growing. It's going to grow. And I think that the publishing methods that they use in order for researchers to get published, which is something that a lot of researchers are desperately trying to do, the process that PLOS has for getting published is actually a little bit smoother than some of the other places. They have a whole system in place in order to get peer reviewed and in order to get your stuff published. And so keep an eye on them over the next few years. I think that they're going to really take off. Just so we can be clear, the difference between a database and a library, because sometimes we sort of confuse these words. So a database is completely online. You won't find any physical paper or books or anything like that. None of that is there. So a database has electronic records. They don't have every article of everything. That would be impossible. And so a database is PubMed, where you go, you type in your search terms, and you get hits back on whatever it is. And we'll talk about that. But basically, a database is a collection of electronic articles, research things that you can use in order to search for electronic results. And then a library, especially if you end up going to a university, a library is where they keep books, yes, of course, and they have, magazines and things you can go physically in and check out, and they have computers you can use. I know you know what a library is, but then also a library has typically they have access to databases. And especially if you're going to a university, you pay a fee, a library fee, and one, it pays for librarians, which those people should be worshipped, okay? Librarians are very intelligent people. I know that you don't think of that. You think of like an old lady with glasses shushing you, but librarians are where it's at. It is uh, electronic publishing of things has completely revolutionized library science. People can get PhDs in library science, and they still probably wouldn't know everything. The whole concept of searching for articles, that is what librarians do. So everything that I'm teaching you in this, I was actually taught by a librarian. And libraries will pay, they'll use those fees that students pay to the university, or they use the tax dollars from your city, and they will pay to have access to databases. So sometimes if you go to a library and you sit down and maybe you talk to the librarian, because that's awesome, ask them if they have access to databases. And you might find that through your public library card or through your student university access, that you have access to databases that you wouldn't otherwise. Okay, so keep that in mind when we think about the difference between a library and a database. Libraries have databases, databases don't have libraries. Okay. All right, so when you get a research topic and you think, okay, now I'm going to go look up things about my research topic, right? You might think to just go to a database and type in your stuff, but you would be wrong. So the first thing that you need to find before you start looking for articles on your topic is search terms for your topic. Okay, because when you go to a database and you type into that search engine, you type in the word that you're looking for, the search engine isn't looking for everything about your topic. It's only looking for the string of letters that you've typed in because it's a computer. It doesn't have a brain. So if you type in the word baby, your search engine is going to look for everything out there in the world where a B is followed by an A, which is followed by a B, which is followed by a Y. Okay? It's not going to give you results for babies because there's no Y. It's not going to give you infant and it's not going to give you child. All right? So I need you to keep that in mind when you're looking for whatever it is. If you type in dental hygiene, you're probably going to get hits for dental without hygiene, and you're probably going to get hits for hygiene, like overall hygiene. You're probably going to get hits for an industrial hygiene, things like that. So I'm going to show you ways to really hone in what you want to find. A good way to do this, if you're kind of hung up on, well, how else do I say what I want to say? This is the point where you go to Google and you type in whatever it is you want, because Google has wonderful algorithms that help you find more words like this about whatever it is you're looking for. So if you're like, I don't know any other words for baby, there's no other way that I could say baby. You go to Google and you type in baby synonym, and it will give you some synonyms. Okay, so that's what you want to do. You want to find the synonyms, but we don't just want any synonym. I don't want to have just babies, right? I don't write I don't not looking for babies. So if you if when you're looking for your search terms, you need to hone in on who your audience is, right? Is it your patient? Is it other professionals? Is it your dentist? And then you need to look for the types of articles that are for your audience. So if I'm looking for an article for my patient, I'm going to find something that's written in that type of verbiage because they're not a dental professional. So I'm not looking for the word sulcus, I'm looking for the word pocket, right? And then we want the type of article for the audience that we have. And so the search terms will dictate which types of articles we find. And I know you hate this, but spelling is going to matter. So if you are looking for maybe someone's favorite toothpaste and you go type in favorite toothpaste, right? You're not going to get articles from the UK because they spell favorite differently than we do. So keep that in mind when you're typing things like this in. This truncation is a concept where they expand whatever your search term is. So if you were to go to, PubMed and you were to type in the word develop, but then you put that little asterisk there on the back. And now different databases have different symbols for truncation. So it's not always the asterisk, but that's what PubMed uses. PubMed's kind of my favorite. So if I type in develop asterisk, then I'm going to get results on the word develop. I'll get development and I'll get developing. And so it's a nice way if you have a verb where the end of the word, the ending, the suffix changes, then it's a good way to sort of blow up that word and get all of the variations of that one word. It's not something you want to do every time because it doesn't necessarily apply to every situation. But if you are looking for a verb of whatever it is your population is, and you need to know what that population is doing, then truncation might be the method for you. All right, so next up we have Boolean logic. I know this sounds so silly, but Boolean logic is these little words that we stick in between our other words that tell us either to include or exclude. And so if we use the word and we have it over there on the side where I have the words puppy and now and must be in all caps, and kitten, then that means I'm only going to get research articles that have both the words puppy and kitten in them, okay? If there was an article out there that was only about puppies and it didn't include kittens, I would not get that article in my search, okay? It's going to exclude that search because it doesn't have both. If I use the word or, then I'll get articles that have just puppy in them. I'll get articles that have puppies and kittens, and I'll get articles that are just about kittens. And I like those kinds of articles, puppies, or just the kittens ones. And then if we use not, then we would have articles that are about puppies only. We would not get articles about puppies and kittens, and we would definitely not get articles just about kittens. And so what this does is if there is an article out there where maybe you're looking for, periodontal disease, and you're looking for how, some factor is playing into periodontal disease, there are probably articles out there about that factor and periodontal disease, but that are written about cavities. And you don't want cavities, right? You're not trying to read about cavities. You're just trying to read about periodontal disease. And so that is when not would be used. I want you to be really careful about using the word not. Not is typically not recommended. So what happens is that if there's an honorable mention at the bottom of the article or somewhere in there, they say, oh yeah, people have problems with cavities, but let's talk about periodontal disease. You're not going to get that article in your search terms. Okay, you want to be very, very careful about using the word not. I'll tell you later when it's appropriate to use the word not, but for now, it exists, but do not use it. Okay, so then we're still talking about how to refine our search terms so that we get the results we want. Okay, so we're still messing with the search terms that we are going to type into our search engine. The next step is going to be nesting. And what we do here with nesting is we use punctuation in order to help us narrow the results we want, to get just what we're looking for and not the things we're not looking for. And so what we can do is we can use quotation marks around certain phrases in order for the search engine to search for the whole phrase together and not the individual words. Remember how we said that if we typed in dental hygiene into a search engine, we would get hits for dental and we would get hits for hygiene, right? Separate, not necessarily related to one another. If we were to put quotation marks around dental hygiene, we would get the whole phrase together. It would have to include dental space hygiene in order for us to get a hit on that article. And so quotation marks are probably my favorite thing because I'm always looking for the words like periodontal disease. I'm not just looking for periodontal. I don't want an article telling me what periodontal means or what it is or what looks normal. I'm looking for periodontal disease, okay? And so I love quotation marks. They have made my life so much easier when I'm looking for very specific things about a phrase or little two-word togethers like that: dental hygiene, periodontal disease, dental caries, things like that, things we want to keep together. And then a parentheses, they will group our sections together. And so what happens here is when you're using those Boolean logic operators, which I know you're going to, right, because we love them. So you might think that we want an article about puppies and kittens, or we want an article about dental hygiene. I don't want articles about puppy, kitten, dental hygiene problems. Okay, I don't want that. So what I might do is I'll say, here's a parenthesis, and I want puppies, maybe and kittens, or puppies or kittens, right? Put those in parentheses, and then I could put, or I want articles about dental hygiene. And so what's going to happen is I'm going to get articles about puppies and kittens that have nothing to do with dental hygiene, and I'm going to get articles about dental hygiene that have nothing to do with puppies and kittens. Okay? And what that allows me to do is to say, hey, I want you to look for these maybe three things. So I want, maybe caries or cavity or I don't know, another word for cavity. And then we're going to put those in parentheses. And I want the words dental hygiene. Okay, so that's going to give me all of the variations of a certain word, like cavity and caries. And it's going to give me those words together. So I'm going to get, dental hygiene cavities. I'm going to get dental hygiene caries. And so what that allows me to do is separate different aspects of my search terms so that I can use those spelling variations and so that I can use those quotation marks wherever I need to in order to get the results I'm looking for. And I'm going to show you how to do this in the next slide. We're going to get into PubMed. Okay, so maybe I'm just really curious about the role that certain foods might play in kids getting cavities. Maybe my daughter got a cavity and I'm like, but I never feed her sugar, you know? And so then I'm looking for other foods, other nutrition that might, play a role in that. Or maybe I have a patient that comes in and the mom asks me why her son has a cavity and what she can do to prevent that from happening, right? And I know you guys learn all about this in nutrition. And then or maybe I'm going to write a paper about the effects of nutrition on early childhood caries. Okay, and so each one of these different roles, maybe I'm just curious, or maybe a patient asked me a question, or maybe on a more professional standard I'm going to give a continuing education class on the effects of nutrition. And so each one of these will determine the type of articles I'm looking for and the types of words I'm going to use. So let's just go with the bottom one. We're looking for the effects of nutrition on early childhood caries. And early childhood caries are typically 0 to 5, or sometimes it's 0 to 6, depending on, who's deciding what early is. Anyway, so I'm going to type in dental caries, okay? Because I'm looking for the word caries, it's not going to give me hits on cavities, right? And that's important because I'm looking for articles that are for professionals, dental professionals. I'm not looking for articles that have been written for patients or for the general public. I'm looking for professional articles about something that I know a lot about, and the proper term for a cavity is caries. So I'm looking for dental caries, and I've got quotation marks around it because I want to get dental caries, not just caries by themselves, and I certainly don't want dental by itself. Dear God, I get way too many results. So anyway, I'm looking for that phrase together. And I need to have early childhood. So because I've typed in early childhood, it's not going to give me hits on teenagers. It's not going to give me hits on 12-year-olds, okay? It's only going to give me early childhood to the best of PubMed's, not PubMed, all of the other articles that have been written that include the words early childhood somewhere in wherever they're searching for. Usually a search like this will include the title, it'll include the description that the author provides, it'll include an abstract. It doesn't necessarily, oh, and also whenever you publish a study, you'll put up like certain words, certain search terms that if someone types those words into the search engine, that your article will pop up for. And so those are all included in the articles that your search engine will return to you. They're not going to look through every single word of every single article. Okay, so you don't have to worry about that. And then we're also looking for nutrition. So I don't just want what's happening with early childhood caries. I also want to include nutrition. I've got 3 separate limiters on here. This is another part where your PICO comes into play. So if my PICO is my P of PICO is my problem or my population, actually I have both of them. My problem is caries, okay? And my population is early childhood. And my intervention is nutrition, okay? I don't have a control in or a comparison in this one because a lot of times the comparison is the control, which is like no intervention, but you don't necessarily have to put in all 4 of the PICO in order to get the right search terms that you're looking for. Maybe I don't know what my outcome is, and so I'm just looking for information and trying to find out what the study's outcomes tell me about outcomes, or I don't know what the control is or the comparison is. Maybe once we get into this, I'll be able to see that they're comparing, apples to oranges, but I don't know that until I get into it. So as much of that PICO information as I have, you certainly want, your P, definitely definitely have to put that in there as far as your population or your problem. Most of the time, if you put in both a population and a problem, you're going to get more results. And then I also have my intervention, or my I, in here too. It's best if you have as much of that PICO as you can get into those search terms so that you get articles that are about your PICO. Duh. If you want articles about it, you got to type it in. So here we go. Here I put in dental caries. So I'm using my quotation marks. I'm using my Boolean logic, and I got 43 results from PubMed on dental caries and early childhood and nutrition. All right, so 43 results is not bad, right? But not all of them are free. And I don't want to waste my time looking for abstracts for things that I'm not going to be able to read. Okay, so I'm actually going to go over here in PubMed. I'm going to go over to this left side, and you can see there that I can click on free full text. That means I'm only looking for articles where the full article, the full study is published. I am not going to get results for things that I can't download, that I can't get for free. The other ones on here, we can see just an abstract. I don't want to do that, right? I'm not trying to read just abstracts. If you were looking for abstracts in order to get a collection of them to figure out which ones you want to read, and then, maybe you've got a collection of those, you take it to your publisher, you say, I need to read all of these articles, and they pay for you to get access to them. Things like that. That's not us. So don't worry about that. Most of these articles will have an abstract on there, depending on what you're looking for, but some of them might not. And then full text is that the full text is available online. Sometimes when you type into these things, there's you can see article type, books and documentaries. You want articles you can read the full thing of. Sometimes with books and documentaries, things like that, they only post a section, and so that's probably not something that you would want to have. So if you're looking to be able to read the full article, you might want full text there. Maybe if you're willing to pay, but in including free full text, you're going to get all of that. And then once I click that one limiter, that one filter, my results have gone down to 31 results. But holy cow, 31 results is a lot of results. So we're going to talk more about these filters. So filters, 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 like Marsha, Marsha, Marsha. Filters are our way of refining our search down. Once we have our search terms, we know what we're looking for. We type them in, we get way too many results, right? They're going to give us every result that they have access to, everything that's ever been published in any capacity on whatever your search terms were that are in that database. And so often that's way too many results, okay? And a lot of those results don't matter to us. So we need to refine those search terms, that we need to filter our search by. The first one is publication date. This one is the most aspect of anything that you can find. So if you're looking for articles that are more than 5 years old, most often something has been published since then, since the article you're reading, and it may or it may not prove whatever it is you're reading. So science is wrong sometimes, right? And they do a study and they say, okay, A equals B, and then somebody else years later replicates that study, they redo it, and they say those people were wrong, and A doesn't equal B. A is separate from B. They're different letters. And so if you only look at the study that says A equals B, you have the wrong information now, okay? You're wrong. So make sure that all of the articles that you are reading are current. Current always means within the last 5 years. And I know 2005 feels like it was yesterday, but that was 15 years ago, okay? Time flies. So make sure whenever you're looking up these kinds of things, you either click last 5 years or you go and you type in 2015 to 2020. The other thing that we're going to be able to filter out is our document type. And so there are books, articles, dissertations, all sorts of things. We've got lectures, we've got legal cases, legislation, letters, multi-set. You can see that little list there, article types. So what we don't want is all of these things. Most of the time, you don't want a book. Okay, books are wonderful. They are wonderful, wonderful ways to find background information about your topic, but they are not good at getting the most current information. Okay, so because we need current information, we're not going to be reading books. What happens with a book is that whoever the author is does research. They look up articles or whatever it is that is current, about 5 years ago. And then it takes them a while. Usually, it takes some time to do all of that research. And then they sit down to write the book. And books take anywhere from 6 months to years to write. And then by the time they finish the article or they finish the book, they send it to their publisher. The publisher reads it, sends back edits. They have to fix it, send it back to the publisher. This goes on and on. And then finally, the editor says, yes, it's good enough, and they publish the book, right? At this point, all of the research that is included in that book is old. It's too old for us, okay? We want current, hard-hitting, right now kind of those news things. We want the new stuff. So books are wonderful as far as reading what's always been and seeing kind of that point in time, but books are not necessarily the things that you're going to want to look for when you're trying to find the most current evidence-based way of conducting your practice. Dissertations are wonderful too, because whoever wrote the dissertation or the thesis usually has to provide all of those references. They're usually using current information. So as long as the citations that your dissertation is using are also current, then usually it's acceptable. And you have to kind of be aware too that dissertations are written by students, and so they do get peer reviewed. They do go through a panel of judges to verify that the research was done correctly. And so dissertations are good. They just not they're not the best way of doing it. They're not done by researchers. They're done more so by student researchers. And so keep that in mind. Articles really are the best thing that you're looking for. The next one is language. Um, Language is wonderful, and it's really awesome that other languages are now kind of pooling into the research, and we're all publishing articles that other countries and other languages can read. And it's a wonderful way to expand our knowledge base to people outside of our own cultural way of thinking about that. In America, well, America is pretty diverse, but you know what I mean. So what's nice about the being able to include other languages is that there's more research out there, right? Other countries are doing research on these things too. The thing that I want you to be careful with language, though, is that there are always nuances that are lost in translation. Okay, so the meaning behind whatever the language, whatever the research is, the meaning behind it isn't always transferred and translated exactly to the new language. A lot of times, the people who translate these things are not also the researchers or the experts in those fields. They're people who translate. And if they don't necessarily understand they're not experts in that field, then they may not be able to translate 100% perfect. And so I love the fact that we can read other countries, other languages work, and it's usually translated well into English. But if you're considering writing a meta-analysis, then using other languaged papers is something that you just need to be aware of, that some things can be lost in translation. Peer-reviewed is also very pivotal. So just like current publication date, peer-reviewed is one of those things that if you're not using peer-reviewed research, you're wrong. Peer-reviewed is a way that someone in your field writes a paper, other experts in that field then read the paper, and they say they can look at it with a knowledgeable eye and say whether or not that research was done correctly. If I were to look at a physicist's research article, I would not be, even though I think I'm pretty smart, but I wouldn't be able to look at that paper and say, oh, you did that study wrong, you should have conducted this, or you misinterpreted those results there. I wouldn't be able to do that because I'm not an expert in that field. But if I were to read a research article and you were to say to me, that you did this study, and I look at the study and I say, look at all these areas where this study has flaws, that you've misinterpreted certain areas, you've over assumed certain things, and then I would kick it back to you and it would be not peer reviewed. If I read your study and I said, dang, you got this, you did amazing at this, and I look at it and I see no flaws with it, I put my little stamp of approval on it, and it is peer reviewed. Okay, so keep that in mind that peer reviewed means that researchers did the study and then other experts looked at it and they think it's great and it's worth publishing. Full text online is another thing we can filter so we can make sure we get the full article on there, right? We don't necessarily want books. I don't know about y'all. You're pretty dedicated if you're going to read an entire book in order to write a literature review or in order to, look up something. That's you got to be pretty interested in a topic to be able to read a whole book. All right, so now we're getting into the good stuff. We have found an article where the title kind of piques our interest, and we click on it, and we've got our abstract here. And just like I said before, the abstract is not the only thing you're going to read, okay? But we're going to read the abstract. So we're going to read what the study was about, a little bit about how they conducted the study, and a little tiny bit about the results that they found. Um, this one right here is about feeding frequency in infancy and dental caries in childhood, right? So this one, it does include nutritional component, maybe not necessarily what the children are eating, but how often they are eating. So it certainly has a different component to maybe the research that I thought I was going to get, right? So if I were looking, my research was more so in, the sugar consumption of children and they're getting dental caries, then this would probably not be the article for me. I would read this abstract and I would say, I really don't want to include the concept of frequency. I just want sugar content. So then I wouldn't then go read the whole article. But if I'm all about the feeding frequency, I don't care about sugar content, then I am going to come over here to this big O arrow and it says PMC, which means my full text is online. Now, if you would like to pay for this article, you can absolutely click on that little Wiley full text article and go to that Wiley database and pay for the article if you'd like to, but you don't need to do that. So you can click on that one, the PMC, and it will take you over to where the full text is. All right, so let's say that feeding frequency article was everything I've ever hoped to get from an article. It is the golden article, right? Like a golden egg. It is everything I've ever been looking for. There are ways when you find one really amazing article to then make it turn into lots of articles, right? Because all of your professors and instructors, they're all going to expect you to have more than one reference, always. So what you can do is called snowballing, where you're going to use the article that you found and you're going to use it to find other articles. We're going to, like the little snowball rolling downhill, it gets bigger, right? So what we might do is we might search for the same author as the one who wrote the study we like, because most of the time researchers do more than one study in the same sort of topics. People who, are really passionate about autism don't then go write about depression. Okay? They kind of stay in whatever topic that they're about. If someone's researching feeding frequency in early childhood caries, they're probably going to stay in that field. So those are people that we would want to include and follow their chain of research. We would always use the same search terms, right? Because whatever our search terms we put in were good ones. They found us some stuff that we wanted. We might go to the same journal if it was published in a certain journal. Like if we were looking for early childhood caries, we wouldn't then go read a magazine or something like that on people. We would stay reading maybe Access magazine, or we would stay reading the American Dental Association's magazines, things like that. um, the other thing is that article. So we found the article, we love it, we read the whole thing, right, not just the abstract, and we scroll all the way down to our references page. And every single article, if it is published, it's evidence-based, it is going to have a references page. Sometimes it's called works cited, whatever format it's in, doesn't really matter. But those references, the sources that article used, are now available to us. We can see what articles they read in order to write the paper that we loved. So if we go down there and we see an article that is in line with what we're looking for, we can go check that article out. The other thing we're going to look at is the cited by list. This is something that PubMed does, and so some other databases will do for you, where they'll give you a list of other articles that have been published that cited the article you're looking at. So here we go. Right, so here's my article on feeding frequency patterns. And then I'm going to come over here on the right-hand side, and it's going to show me similar articles, which is something nice that PubMed does for you. And it's also going to show you the cited by articles down here. So I can click on either one of these, and it's going to take me to a new list of things that are maybe what I'm looking for. Cited by is one of the best tools for finding current research, because if the article you're looking at is current, then anything that was written that references the one you read is obviously more current. Sometimes it gets a little tricky if you're using a references list, because something that they used may not be current for your article. Okay, so keep that in mind. Okay, so what's really wonderful about PubMed is that if you type in search terms and one of your search terms is that the free text is available online, typically in the cited by list, it will give you free text online kind of thing. Normally, it will carry over those search terms and won't necessarily give you everything that's ever been published that was cited, that cited your paper. But for the references, just like I said, we need to be really careful. There's kind of like a little list that I follow when I look at these lists. The first one is the date. So if whatever your article is citing, whatever your article is referencing, those dates need to be important before I take the time to go read those papers. So this one, you can see that very top one with the arrow, that was written in 2013. So that one's too old for me. I can't go read that one, right? I'm not going to be able to use it. There's no point in it. If you go to the second one right there, I have highlighted 2016. So that one is current, and that means I could go read that one, right? And when I look, I have PubMed or Google Scholar as my two available ones that I could go click on. And so I'm the link to where we're going to go is important, because it's going to take us hopefully to another open access article, right? Because I don't want to pay for wherever I go. So if you look at the bottom arrow, the one that's kind of pointing up, see how it says PMC free article? That is the article I probably want to go and click on. Now it's written in 2015, so I got to be careful. And that one's about sugar sweetened beverages. So maybe that's important to me. Now. Maybe that's just something, another component of the research that I'm looking into. That's just something else I want to read. The other thing, the third thing, is whether or not it is primary or secondary research. The World Health Organization typically will publish secondary research because they have researchers who do studies and they publish the studies, but they don't, like the World Health Organization publishes papers written about those studies. So a lot of times you'll get some meta-analyses or some systematic reviews from the World Health Organization. But basically, you just want to keep in mind the journal, or that whatever article you're looking at here, where it was published. That first one, you can see that it was published in the Community of Dental and Oral Epidemiology. And so if I'm not, looking at epidemiologic studies, then I might not want to go read that one. But you can see the bottom one is the International Journal of Pediatric Dentistry. So that one might be my jam. It's probably written by a different language though, because I see some names that aren't necessarily traditional here. So keep those things in mind when you're looking at a references list. It's going to give you a lot of the information that you need. What I also really like about a references list is it shows you how long those articles are. So that very top one, you can see it says 2013. It says 41, which is the volume of the journal or whatever it is. And then it says 327 to 335. So that tells me that that article is 8 pages long. So maybe I don't feel like reading 8 pages, right? Maybe I just feel like reading 211 to 219, right? That's only 8 pages, or yeah, 8 pages. So um, the references list of what you find at the bottom of your article, use that to go then find more articles, and it's going to give you a ton of information about what you're looking for. All right, and then this one is what that cited by list looks like. And so here you can see I had 5 articles that were cited by the article, the feeding frequency article that I'd clicked on. That was my golden egg. And it cited by is such a fantastic tool that is used by PubMed. I'm sure other databases do it as well, but man, PubMed just makes it so easy. So you'll come here to this page and you'll see assessment risk factors for early childhood caries at different ages in China. This one was published in 2020. That women's economic empowerment, participation in decision making, and exposure to violence as risk indicators for early childhood caries. That one probably doesn't have a nutritional component in it, so I might not go read that one. But you can see that each one of these say free PMC article, which is, I just love that about PubMed, making sure that if it was important for me that it was free before, it is still important to me that it's free, and they get that. So I'm looking at all of these. Again, I'm looking at the dates, although usually with a cited by, I don't have to worry about that. I know that if it was cited by an article that's current, that means it's also current. The main thing here I'm looking for is that it is similar to my search terms, that it's something about my search terms, and that it's worth me going to click on. So just keep in mind that for your references, you're going to be rolling backward. You're going to be looking at research that was published before your golden egg. If you are looking at your cited by list, that's kind of like rolling forward. You're looking at articles that have been published since your golden egg. All right. And so this one is an honorable mention. When I first started doing research stuff like this, I used to have to go to PubMed and then find mesh terms, and their medical subject headings. What you would do is you would go and you would type in a word into the mesh term, and then it would give you like an expanded version of that word. And it would tell you, like, hey, your word is used a lot in conjunction with this word, or did you mean this? And you would go through and you would click all those different types of words, and it would give you more options. It would give you a broadened search based on having more search terms, or maybe it would narrow your search a bit and it would make you more specific to exactly what you were looking for. PubMed actually has stopped using that. They have a new automatic system now. It's called ATM, and it will automatically figure out which kinds of search terms relate to your term. And in the beginning, we talked about, it's like a string of letters, and for most search engines, that's how it works. But again, PubMed, they're just they get the blue ribbon. They're just amazing. They have found a way to an algorithm to be able to, at least for the most part, figure out maybe what you're looking for when you type that in. So just use PubMed. It's just great. All right. And just like always, you're gonna come up with your search terms. You're gonna use all of the Boolean logic. You're gonna use all of the nesting. You're gonna be ready. You've got all the synonyms sorted out. You're good to go. You type all that stuff into your search engine, and you have way too many results. You've got like hundreds of results. You went there and you typed in the words periodontal disease. Don't do that. So there is things you can do in order to narrow down your search results, because you have way too many and you're not going to sit and read 200 research articles. Okay, that's ridiculous. So what you want to do is use the word and. When you use and, it will get rid of any articles that don't include all of those specific key terms that you want in your article, right? So if the article doesn't include disease, it only includes periodontal, then if you use periodontal and disease, then you're going to get something that has both, which means you won't get things about just disease and you won't get things about just periodontal, and that will be wonderful for you. So you'll use and. This is the only time you will consider using the word not. So if you were to go to Google and you were to type in Lions, right? Because you're a huge sports fan and you're all about them Michigan Lions or Detroit Lions. So you go and you type in the word Lions and you get a Google page that is full of the animal at the zoo. You'll get where the zoos are, you'll get which zoos just had a baby cub. It'll be adorable, but it's not going to have anything to do, or you might have one or two hits in there about the Detroit Lions, and that will be wonderful, but you're going to have to sift through a bunch of stuff, right? You don't necessarily want to do that. So what you might do is go and type in lions. You could just type in Detroit Lions, but that hasn't occurred to you yet. So you're going to type in lions, but you're going to say not animal, or you're going to say not zoo. And then you're going to get just things that are about lions, but not the things that are happening at the zoo. So if the article includes the word zoo, it will kick it out and you won't get it because, your Detroit Lions, unless they visit the zoo, you're not going to need that. The other thing that you can do is to put in more filters, more of those limiters. And so if we refine our search more, maybe in the last, 5 years, there's been 3,000 papers that have been published on periodontal disease. And that's just too many to read, right? So what you do is you go and say, well, I'm only going to read the articles that have been written on periodontal disease in the last 3 years because I'm fancy like that. So you go and limit it even more. And maybe you only now have 500 articles that have been written in the last 3 years on periodontal disease. But then you go in and you say, and xerostomia. So then you've limited your results. You've added in key concepts. You're adding in search terms. You're using Boolean logic, and it's going to help you refine down your search so that you don't have to spend forever sifting through all of those things. When you're sifting through, you're going to be really tempted to just read abstracts, but you're not going to do that. I know you're not. All right, and the other problem that you could have, it's probably the most frustrating thing for me ever, is that you don't get enough results, okay? If I want to read 30 papers on periodontitis, I want to read at least 30 of them, okay? I don't want to read 5. So if you go in and you type it in and you have too few results, sometimes it'll straight up be like, we don't have any research results for you. It's because you've used maybe too many limiters, okay? So here we're going to consider using the word or operator in order to expand our search a little bit more. We're not just looking for, periodontal disease in xerostomia of, 50-year-olds. Maybe now we're going to include 70-year-olds too. Okay. So we're going to use or in order to expand our search and get a little wider net. We want to cast a bigger net. We're going to think of more synonyms. So maybe we've got caries and we've got cavity, but all of a sudden it's occurred to us that the word decay is also sometimes correlated here. So we're going to consider adding in the word decay because it's a synonym to cavity and carie. Truncation, this is a really great one too, because if I'm looking at the development of caries for early childhood caries, then I might also want to include a study that says developing childhood caries or developed childhood caries. And so truncation is a really great way to expand those words, but it's important to remember to only use those on verbs, okay? Verbs. Now, you're going to check the spelling of your keywords too, because if you spell something wrong or if you spell it like a very specific way that doesn't maybe apply to the way that you're using it, you're not going to get the results that you want. And then the last thing that you need to consider is that there just isn't a whole lot out there on your topic. This happened to me. I wanted to do research on the nutritional aspects of salivary composition because I think that what you eat plays a role in maybe the calcium and mineral composition of your saliva. And I'll be darned, but there's not a whole lot out there. So I have found the thing that I need to research. All right, this is my dog, Oliver. He's kind of a butthead, but he's really cute. And then that's it. So if you have questions or concerns, or you want to reach out to me about any of the concepts that I've talked about here, you're always welcome to send me an email. I really, really wish you the best in this research class because I love it and I hope you do well. And I hope you go out there into the world and you use this evidence-based practice in a way that just astounds everyone around you and shows everyone just how freaking awesome dental hygienists are.